These are the NFL bets that I love after the draft. What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with some NFL best bets and futures for the upcoming 2022 season and how my mind has changed after the draft. So these are some bets to capitalize on quickly. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe to the channel for more NFL best bets all season long. Also, get in that comment section and let me know your favorite bets, futures for the upcoming season. Let's get started with some to make or to not make the playoff bets, along with some division winner bets. The first is just a football team that I like, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. You see the D-Jax jersey in the background. The Philadelphia Eagles stock has risen a ton after the draft because of one player, well, really two players, A.J. Brown and Jordan Davis. Two highly impactful players on both sides of the football. The Philadelphia Eagles, I love this season as a team to make the playoffs in the NFC. But not only that, you can also bet on them to win the NFC East. Because think about it, I believe they are the more talented, well-rounded football team in that division. I understand they do not have the best quarterback. That is Dak Prescott. And that is why the markets believe the Cowboys should be favored. But I don't think it should be that far apart between first and second. And right now, the Eagles, it's pretty good value because they're better on the offensive line. They have one of the strongest offensive lines with a ton of depth as well in the league. They have a ton of depth and a ton of talent on the defensive line. You're talking about getting back Brandon Graham, signing Hassan Reddick, and drafting Jordan Davis. This is a loaded defensive line. I didn't even talk about Fletcher Cox or Javon Hargrave. They've upgraded the linebacker position. Offensively, they now have two number one receivers. They have a dangerous and well-rounded tight end in Dallas Goedert and a very capable running back, Miles Sanders, who is electric. Jalen Hurts goes into his second season with this system. And remember, they didn't really figure out this system until about halfway throughout the year. The coaches didn't really know what to do with Jalen Hurts or this offense last year until about halfway. And then they went on a run. And speaking of the coaching now is entering their second season to boost up the teachings of their systems on both sides of the football. So the Philadelphia Eagles, I just feel, give great value right now to do damage, make the playoffs, and potentially win the NFC East. So bet on the Eagles as soon as you can. The next bet that I love is, let's look at the AFC South, okay? The Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. I love one of them. I don't love the other one. The one that I love is the Indianapolis Colts, which I believe should be much bigger favorites than they are to win this division. I think the Colts are the most complete team in this division. I think they are ready to win this division. And I think they are the team heading in that direction. They're pushing to make the playoffs and make a run, right? They don't bring in Matt Ryan if they're not all in on this season. On top of that, they signed a guy like Stephon Gilmore to help their secondary, which was massive, and traded for Yannick Ngakoue. This team is not bringing in young players. They're actually looking to get some vets in the building, which is rare, but those vets can put them over the top. They also draft Alec Pierce this weekend, and they add him to the receiving core as a legitimate number two. I love him a lot as a prospect. I believe this is a very good, balanced offense that got a huge upgrade at quarterback in terms of maturity and consistency, which is huge. Reliability at quarterback is huge week to week in the NFL. It can open up their offense more. Frank Reich can actually trust the signal caller now. And the defense is one of the strongest in football. The Tennessee Titans took a step back, trading A.J. Brown at the draft. They're looking to get younger. They're looking to replenish. They're not looking to win this division necessarily. Maybe their window has passed slightly. And Ryan Tannehill, the way that last season ended, I wouldn't be shocked if Ryan Tannehill had a big down year up and coming after losing his number one receiver. Derrick Henry, also, we saw him get a big injury last year, and he didn't look like himself in the playoffs, quickly coming back. But will he start to decline as getting up there as a running back as well? So The Tennessee Titans, it just feels like it's their year to decline and the Colts' year to take advantage. So fade the Titans by betting on them to miss the playoffs and take the Colts to win the division in the AFC South. Sticking with some division winner bets, the AFC North. The Browns are favored to win this division? I don't get it. The Bengals just made the Super Bowl, guys. And the Baltimore Ravens are still the Baltimore Ravens. I would pick the Bengals or the Ravens, depending on which preference you have, to win this division over the Browns. We do not know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. The team is kind of unreliable, and I feel overrated on both sides of the football. Meanwhile, the Bengals are more talented. They are better. They are deeper than they were on their Super Bowl run entering the season. I could see the Bengals hitting this early season schedule hard and really making a run in the regular season. I don't expect the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl again. That's not what I'm saying. But typically, a team that might lose the Super Bowl, you see a lot of them carry over and start strong early in a year, especially a young team like this who's just beginning their rise. The Bengals, I could see having one of the best records in the regular season, but maybe not carrying that forward with the success in the playoffs because that's just hard to replicate. The Baltimore Ravens, meanwhile, are going to be a lot healthier this year. They've got a very strong secondary and defense. Lamar Jackson's still an elite quarterback. Well, their offensive line now, don't sleep on it, and they get their running backs back. So the Ravens are also a good team with a great coaching staff. And hey, the best kicker in the game, so that also helps. But I believe that the Bengals are the bet. But if you like the Ravens, you could also sprinkle a little bit on the Ravens. And either way, you're looking at a winning bet, in my opinion, over a Cleveland Browns team that might struggle out of the gate. And Deshaun Watson, we do not know the status of his future currently. It's that time of year once again. Underdog Fantasy is back. Underdog Fantasy, you guys know it's my favorite place to play fantasy, especially this summer, because Best Ball Mania 3, it's the biggest Best Ball Mania of all time. I love Best Ball, specifically on Underdog Fantasy, because there's no in-season commitment. You don't gotta worry about it, man. No trades, no waivers. You just have fun drafting your team. So right now, Underdog Fantasy will double your first deposit up to $100 when you use my promo code BLV. That is UnderdogFantasy.com. You can get it on your phone, in the App Store. It's phenomenal. I love the app. It's easy to use. Best Ball Mania 3, 10 million in prizes right now. Use the promo code BLV. That is promo code BLV and double your first deposit up to $100. I will see you there. Let's have fun this summer playing some fantasy football. Now let's rattle off some bets to make the playoffs. The first one is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are clearly the second best team in their division behind the Green Bay Packers. They have a new, young, fresh head coach in Kevin O'Connell who's going to rejuvenate this offense and add some wrinkles to their scheme, and I feel increase the productivity of their passing game. I love Justin Jefferson. I think they can really do damage with Kirk Cousins this year through the air. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. They have pieces there to be explosive offensively, and defensively, they really did a good job of upgrading it through the draft in the secondary with Andrew Booth and Lewis Seen, and then also up front through free agency, Harrison Phillips, Hicks at linebacker, Zadarius Smith at pass rusher edge. So I really like the Vikings to find their way to the playoffs this year with low-key one of the more reliable quarterbacks in the conference. I know it's Kirk Cousins, but he is reliable. He makes the playoffs sometimes when he has a good team around him, and I think he has a good team around him, especially in this bad conference. Think about it. How many quarterbacks in the NFC are actually better than Kirk Cousins? Not many. The next team that's very similar here is the New Orleans Saints. I love the New Orleans Saints because they're clearly the second best team in the NFC South. They have a very strong defense, arguably the best in football, at least I thought they were last year. Now, they're going to miss Sean Payton, but they're going to add some flavor and some electricity to the offense with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas at wide receiver. They didn't have either guy last year. Of course, Olave they drafted. Michael Thomas was out all of last season. And Jameis Winston's hopefully healthy this year. I look at the Saints as a really tough team to beat every single Sunday, and I feel they can squeak in the playoffs. That's not a bad bet whatsoever. They're very well-rounded and a very, very underrated roster, talent-wise. On top of that, they're one of the few teams that is like second or third in their division that kind of dominates the best team in their division, so that also helps. The next team on the make the playoffs chart here is the Las Vegas Raiders, which this is the biggest long shot of the first three that I've discussed here. But the Las Vegas Raiders, I absolutely love their direction under the new regime. I'm a big fan of Josh McDaniels. I've watched him, grown with him as a football fan, and I just believe in him. I believe in him to get the best out of Derek Carr, the best Derek Carr we've ever seen. I could see Derek Carr being an MVP candidate at the end of the year. Devontae Adams along with McDaniels, those two things are just going to increase his productivity as becoming an elite quarterback, because he was very, very good last year. And this was a football team that made the playoffs through so much stuff. They had to persevere through everything from the John Gruden situation to the Henry Ruggs situation, and the list goes on. They continued to win. They continued to persevere. This team has a lot of heart, and I like this defense. I think it's growing. I love the switch in scheme, and I think that's going to help them versus teams like the Chiefs when they absolutely got blown out last year due to their lack of good scheming from their defense last year. That's going to be increased. So a better offense, a better defense projects as a better team this year. And even if it's a tougher division, this is a team that's proven that when they are the underdog, they perform. So the Raiders are not a bad team to bet on, as everyone else is sleeping on them. And the final to make the playoffs or to not make the playoffs is the Dallas Cowboys to not make the playoffs. And if you bet this, you could 3 times your money. I really like this bet. As I discussed with the Eagles, if you like the Eagles as much as I do, taking the Cowboys to miss the playoffs right now is not a bad bet, because it almost feels like if the Cowboys are going to make it this year, they're going to have to win their division, right? Same with the Eagles. So I don't know if I necessarily see 2 NFC East teams making the playoffs. You never know with this weaker NFC, but the Cowboys have regressed, and as we've seen in the past, guys, the Cowboys typically make the playoffs and then miss the playoffs, make the playoffs and then miss the playoffs. And they haven't figured out the structure to keep their team going in the right direction yet. I don't know why, but it seems like they have a better team one year and they fall off the next, and they can't recoup and keep together a roster or a team. And that's what's happened this year. Losing some big name contributors like Gregory on the defense, Cooper on the offense, Collins on the offensive line. These are a lot of pieces, and big time pieces, that will hurt their productivity and the win column this season. Now, transitioning to the win totals, if you don't love the Cowboys to miss the playoffs here, and you still think there's a chance that they can make it, even if it doesn't pay as well, you could still bet the Cowboys under 10.5, because they could make the playoffs at 10-7. They could make the playoffs at 9-8, and I wouldn't be surprised. As I keep saying, in this NFC, there's going to be some weaker teams making the playoffs this year, just the way it's constructed. It's not nearly as strong as the AFC. So I could see the Cowboys or the Eagles making the playoffs with 9 wins, and you would still win your bet. So playoffs doesn't necessarily mean going over their win total. So the under is what I like there. Next in the line of bets, I enjoy a little Broncos sprinkle on the under. I think they're a little bit hyped to the point where a lot of casual fans are going to be betting on their overs, and I feel there's a lot that could go wrong here. While I do personally believe in the Broncos and Russell Wilson and their team, I also have to look at the odds, right? And have to measure how much this could really backfire and how often, if we simulate this, the Broncos miss out on the playoffs. I like the Raiders as a team. I love the Chargers as a team. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Broncos are a team with a lot of questions. New quarterback, new coaching staff. A lot of players that are promising but not proven. So the Broncos are a team that, again, hey, could they make the playoffs with 9 wins? Well, their win total is 10. So it's a lot of pressure to put on a team in their first year with a new quarterback and a new coaching staff. That's all I'm saying. And the final win total that I don't mind, and this is one that I typically don't look to bet on because it's such a low number, but under 5.5 for the Seahawks. If you totally disagree with my thought on the Broncos and you love the Broncos, it's because you probably love Russell Wilson. So if you love Russell Wilson, man, bet on the under for the Seahawks, because if you believe like I believe, Russell Wilson has carried the Seahawks for a number of years now. And they're going through a slew of quarterbacks this year. It's going to be Drew Lock. It's going to be Geno Smith. It might be Baker Mayfield. Who knows? But their defense isn't good enough to carry a bad quarterback. Their offensive line isn't good enough to protect a bad quarterback. And their coaching staff feels old and outdated. So the Seahawks I could easily see in the toughest division of the NFC going under 5.5 wins. I mean, they could easily have a top 3, top 5 pick in the draft, and I would not be surprised. So 5.5 seems like too much respect here for Pete Carroll. I'm going under. Now, finishing with the long shot bets, because those are always our favorite, because if it hits, we feel like an absolute genius. So the first one, I've already kind of discussed this team, but the Las Vegas Raiders. If you don't want to bet on them just to make the playoffs, and you think, hey, you know what? If they make the playoffs, if they're as good as their high upside suggests, if Derek Carr is clicking on all cylinders, if he's in the MVP conversation, if Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football, if Josh McDaniels is this great coach that Mitch suggests, why don't I just bet on them to win the division? Because right now, you can 7 times your money. I mean, it is pretty crazy for a team that made the playoffs last year, how long of a shot it is that Vegas deems Las Vegas to make the playoffs. It's pretty wild. But the Raiders are big underdogs in this AFC West. And I think they're too good of a team to getting this great of odds. So that's why I love this bet. Just because I see an outcome where the Raiders are really talented. They score on everybody. They put up a ton of points. And they shock the world and win this division. Maybe a decline from the Chiefs, which very well could happen. The Chargers being the Chargers and the Broncos just not being able to figure everything out chemistry-wise. It could happen. The second long shot bet, which might be my favorite, is the Jets to make the playoffs at 10-1. The Jets really could be that dark horse team that makes a massive jump. I understand that the AFC is loaded and it's very tough to see the Jets doing anything this year, but there is an avenue, there is an opportunity for the Jets this season. Zach Wilson's second year, where typically quarterbacks take a significant jump. The offensive line is really strong across the board. Their running game is going to be improved with Breece Hall in the second round. They have a strong receiving core and a deep receiving core. Wilson in the first round, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore in his second season. An improved tight end position with CJ Uzoma and Tyler Conklin. A second-year coach now in Robert Saleh and a second-year offensive coordinator. Defensively, they get back Carl Lawson. They improve their secondary with their first pick of the draft, 4th overall Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Whitehead. They have a very strong and deep defensive line, which is going to be dominant this year. Jermaine Johnson in the first round, Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers, and the list goes on. And CJ Mosley leading the way. This is a very talented roster. And if they can find a way to click and Zach Wilson can take the jump, I project this team to be pretty darn good and tough to beat. So that's not a bad bet given the odds. And the final bet I'm going to give you here as a long shot is Mac Jones to win the MVP. Now, I know I'm the Patriots fan, but I'm throwing this out here. 66-1. Is it really 66-1 that Mac Jones could win the MVP this year? Think about it. His second season, again, just like Zach Wilson, he was really good last year as a rookie. Usually those are the guys that take a jump, right? Like Joe Burrow, for example. And Mac Jones projects to be very similar to Joe Burrow, in my opinion. And I could see him having a huge year this year. with more rapport with his receiving core, a strong offensive line, getting another first-round pick in the first round, that 2 tight end set that's growing chemistry. Again, all these players were new last year. Mac Jones is growing chemistry with all these guys. Plus, you add Devontae Parker to the mix. A defense that's probably not going to be as good as last year, which means more focus is going to shift onto the offense to win games. And if they are winning games, then Mac Jones is playing well, and Mac Jones is putting up stats, and that leads to MVP candidacy. And I think a lot of people like Mac Jones. And he's a Patriot. So the buzz for MVP seems realistic if all of this goes down. Now, it's a long shot because it's 66-1, but is he really last year 50-1 for Cam Newton to win the MVP? It's 66-1 for Mac Jones and 60-1 for Tua. So I'm just throwing it out there. That seems like pretty darn good odds. Those are my best bets after the draft. Let me know yours in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching, and drop a comment in the comment section below and let me know your best bet in that comment section. It's Mitch. We will see you in the next video. Thanks for the support. Peace.